Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Patrick Henz, and I have the pleasure to welcome you to another episode of Data-Driven Formula One. This time we will speak again about one of the famous drivers, including one who won the championship, nobody else than Nigel Mansell, or as I called this episode, the line with the red 5. Why line? Why a red 5? You will see it later in this episode. Hope you like it and stay with me. As always, a short profile. Full name Nigel Ernest James Mansell is a British retired racing driver who won both the Formula One Championship 92 and the IndyCar World Series 93. Mansell was the reigning Formula One champion when he moved to kart, becoming the first person to win the kart title in his debut season and making him the only person to hold both the World Drivers' Championship and the American Open Wheel National Championship simultaneously. This as when he won in 93 the US title, there was still no decision regarding the Formula One Championship. So for a small moment, he really had been both the champion in the US IndyCar Series and in the Formula One Championship. Again, unique until today. Born August 1953 in Upton Severn, Worcestershire in England. Upton upon Severn, Worcestershire, England. It's a very small town. And of course, this makes him British. He started his career in Lotus, then moved on to Williams, 2 years at Ferrari, and then returning to McLaren. In total, 192 entries and 33 victories, which made him one of England's or UK's most famous driver and championship winner in 92. Early life, and this important to mention because this made him who he is still today. So Nigel Ernest James Mansell was born August 8, 1953 in Upton upon Severn, Worcestershire, where his parents Eric and Joyce Mansell ran a tea shop. He grew up in Hall Green, Birmingham. If you are following us on YouTube Music, or Spotify. You see here a picture from this little town. So he has not, let's say, the working class background, but small middle to lower class family, I would say, and the owner of a tea shop, which is quite interesting. So he doesn't have this petrolhead background, no parents, wizard workshop, or anything like else. And tea shop, I mean, of course, 100% British, but on the other hand, tea normally is something which you think is slow, while coffee fast, tea slow. So interesting to having a tea background and then coming to Formula One. But that's what it is. His racing career had a rather sluggish start, initially relying on his own finances, as his parents, especially his father, did not support him in this career at least. This So again, his father disapproved. Again, if we think owner of a tea shop, maybe this does not come as a surprise. So he transitioned from kart racing to the Formula Ford series, quite popular in Europe, especially UK, after achieving considerable success in karting. In 1976, he triumphed in 6 out of 9 races, which underlined he had the skills to continue up to Formula One. Despite enduring a broken neck during a qualifying session, and maybe also because of his driving style, he suffered various accidents as part of his career. Nevertheless, luckily, it wasn't never very serious accidents. I mean, life-threatening. So this broken neck Nevertheless, his broken neck, he had been at a qualifying session at Brands Hatch the following year. Mansell emerged victorious in 33 out of 42 races in Formula Ford, securing the title, in Formula 3 as Ford. With this, he secured the 77 British Formula Ford Championship, which becomes before Formula 3 and so on. His doctors cautioned him that he had narrowly escaped quadriplegia and advised a 6 month recovery period with no prospect of returning to racing. Unadjourned, Mansell discharged himself from the hospital, typical Mansell move, and promptly resumed racing. Just prior to the accident, he had resigned from his aerospace engineering job and liquidated most of his assets to finance his pursuit of Formula Ford. So he was a risk taker, as you may say, stubborn, and so he bet everything on his racing career, which worked out for him at the end. Then, 98 to 84, his Formula One career started at Lotus. He raced Formula 3, 78 to 80, and logical next step was, of course, entering Formula One. Colin Chapman offered him in 1980 to test a Lotus, which he did using painkillers due to his accident, as he just suffered an accident leading to a broken vertebrae. The seat went then nevertheless to Elio De Angelis, but Mansell at least became a test driver contract for Lotus in that year, which included some starts in the season. 81, he became a permanent driver at Lotus, but regularly had been outperformed by Elio De Angelis. Later, I will discuss a little bit the internal team duels, which Nigel Mansell had over the time, and then we will come back to this. In 84, Mansell for the first time finished the championship with a top 10 position. For the next season, he lost his seat to Ayrton Senna. Lotus received Honda engines, and also this supported the team getting the talent Ayrton Senna. So 85, Mansell had to look for a new seat and found it with the British Williams team. And here he received for a first time the red 5, so the 5 as his number, and also due to the general livery of the team, it had been painted in red, making him Red 5, similar to Star Wars. If you are unfamiliar with the series, in the first movie, 1973, young Luke Skywalker had the code name Red 5, and with this he attacked the Death Star and at the end destroyed it. Also based on his Jedi powers, including his flying skills. With Honda engines in 86, Mansell became for the first time in reach of winning the championship. Also, he became BBC Sports Personality of the Year based on the skills, but also on his unique character. 87, he lost the championship against Nelson Piquet. He drove hard, sometimes over the limit, something which he did all his career in Formula One. So it was not that this is something typical as a rookie, which you lose with the time, because as you may become a little bit less emotional and also a little bit more strategic. Nigel Mansell, maybe similar to Gilles Villeneuve, he stayed all the time the same person, driving at the limit, sometimes driving over the limit, and also with that triggered technical problems, as he didn't took that care of the car as, for example, somebody as Alain Prost in this decade. 88, he missed 2 Grand Prix due to chickenpox, especially as he ignored his doctor's advice to not drive in the very hot conditions at the Hungarian GP. So the chickenpox became worse as he ignored the doctor's advice, something you remember we saw earlier. We have to speak about the 97 Silverstone Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell's dramatic comeback. During the race, Mansell, driving for the Williams Honda, was running second behind his teammate and rival Nelson Piquet. With about 30 laps to go, Mansell and his team decided to make him a pit stop for fresh tires, which dropped him a long way behind Piquet. At that time, most thought the race was settled. But then the charge through the field on the new tires, he began an incredible push. He broke the lap record 8 times and rapidly closed the gap to Piquet on the old tires. The home crowd, already passionate supporters of our Nige, went wild as he reeled his teammate, which led finally to the victory. With just 3 laps remaining, Mansell executed a daring move on Piquet, diving down the inside at Stoke corner. It was a breathtaking pass that sealed one of his greatest wins. The Silverstone crowd erupted, becoming mad, invading the track after the finish to celebrate their local hero. On slowing down lap, Mansell ran out of fuel. Again, typical Mansell, driving at the limit, including the fuel limit, which was a big problem in 80s, 90s. So we saw sometimes drivers running out of fuel, not only on the outrun lap, but also 1, 2, 3 laps before end of the race. Legacy. This race remembered not only one of Mansell's finest drivers using the Red 5, but also one of Formula One's most exciting moments. It showcased its fearless determination, raw speed, and the special connection he had with British fans. And this event especially triggered British Mansell mania, of course, also fostered by British press. Nevertheless, he left now Williams, and we're speaking about his 2 years at Ferrari. Mansell became the last driver to be selected and confirmed by Enzo Ferrari himself, as he died later in '89. Italian tifosi named him Il Leone, related to his fearless driving style. Also, he became the first driver in the '89 Sao Paulo Grand Prix to win with a semi-automatic gearbox, a technical novelty by the Ferrari team. In 1990, despite his success in '89, at least the limited success, Alain Prost, not his biggest fan, joined the Ferrari team, and this brought Mansell to the number 2 position. Not only because Alain Prost had been a champion at that time, even the reigning champion. So Ferrari got the number 1 and the number 2 for the '99 season, but also Alain Prost, maybe a little bit more having this Latin background, being French. He learned the Italian language and maybe had a closer contact to his crew up to Ferrari management. So all these factors together meant Mansell becoming the clear number 2 in the '99 Ferrari team. And due to this, and maybe also a little bit his age, he announced his retirement after the season. Nevertheless, Frank Williams offered him a seat as the clear number 1, and this convinced Mansell to overthink it and delay his retirement. So 1992, he would be driving again for the Williams team and again with the red number. Mansell broke with this the record for most British Formula One wins, 31, feet only later surpassed by Sir Lewis Hamilton. Again, he won the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award, and this reflects that British Mansell mania was still alive and its general popularity even beyond motorsports. So I remember Nigel Mansell Formula One video games and so on. So really up to date, very popular, especially in UK. Nevertheless, his relation colded with Frank Williams and with The disagreement having Alan Prost again as teammate joining Williams, Mansell took the decision not to completely retire, but switch to IndyCar racing and join the Paul Newman and Haas racing team, where he replaced the reigning champion Michael Andretti, who would join McLaren was 33 in Formula One. This was quite interesting back in time because the fans, of course, always discussed what is better, IndyCar racing, Formula One, which series has the better drivers, IndyCar or Formula One. What we saw in '93 is the reigning Formula One champion debuted in IndyCar and in his first year won IndyCar championship, while Michael Andretti was struggling in the McLaren team to keep up with Ayrton Senna, which at that time I think was the fastest driver in any series. So poor Michael Andretti. Nevertheless, Andretti also had other problems. He was really struggling understanding the McLaren car, which was quite difficult in '93 to drive, and maybe similar as we see today, 25 with Red Bull. It was completely designed for Ayrton Senna, and due to his unique driving style, for any other driver very difficult to drive. Besides that, it was observed that Michael Andretti was always seen a little bit chubby, a little bit overweight in comparison to the fitness level of other Formula One drivers. And this maybe not the best experience for Michael Andretti, who already the year after would return to IndyCar racing and not continue in Formula One. Up to today, Nigel Mansell remains the only driver to have held both Formula One championship and the American title simultaneously, as again, when he won the championship in the US, there was still no decision on the Formula One championship. With this, let's have a look a little bit on the cars. He started Lotus Ford 1980, 0 points, then continued 81, 82, 83 at Lotus with the Ford engine, always around 14th, 13th position. Even though with the Renault engine at Lotus, only a slightly better ninth position, and we will come soon on the duels. Changed to Williams Honda next 3 years, sixth and two-time second. So slowly getting better, but still like the number two driver. And Ferrari first, fourth position, then fifth position again. Not nothing that would say Nigel Mansell has been destined to win the title, which then becomes better. 91 Williams-Renault, second position, and then finally championship 92 Williams-Renault with the FW14B, as you see here on the photo. He would then turn later trying to first at Williams-Renault, not the biggest success, ninth, and then he tried again McLaren, Mercedes, 0 points. Also, he drove not the whole season. He gained a little bit weight in the US, had problems fitting in the slim cockpit, getting a seat, and all this together led to the decision it's better to retire now, which he did then in the middle of the season. So when we discuss Nigel Mansell, sometimes I got the feedback that Nigel Mansell is a little bit overhyped, that he wasn't as good as many thought. That's why I have a little bit look on the numbers, but also important if we discuss numbers, we have of course to consider the backgrounds, as numbers alone do not tell the whole story. First years at Lotus, Practically, he always had been outperformed by Elio De Angelis 3 out of the 4 times. Here you have to, of course, to consider additional factors. Lotus was a team which classically focused on their number one drivers, a smaller team, meaning the cars not have been all time identical, but better components have been integrated into the car of the number one driver, which also have been preferred in the strategies and so on. So this you have to consider. Besides, the cars, including the Lotus, have been highly unreliable at that time, so not often, not always saw the finishing line. Another factor, and we did a special episode about Elio De Angelis, also due his tragic fatal accident. He never won a championship, but he was really a very talented driver, very fast driver. Also, which we saw also he stood up very good driving directly against Ayrton Senna in Lotus. So this was really a very fast driver, so difficult to beat, especially if you're coming new into Formula One and not having all this experience. Then Williams 85, also here out-qualified by Keke Rosberg in the first year. Then interesting 86, maybe also now because it was already his second year at Williams. So the car was a little bit more built based on the feedback from Nigel Mansell than made for Nelson Piquet, who came new into the team. So here he outperformed Nelson Piquet having 70 points, while Nelson Piquet having 69 points. The same here, then the next years, having Riccardo Patrese as a new teammate. Nigel Mansell now really was the number one driver, and Patrese, very good, very fast driver, very good team player, but maybe not, let's say, on championship level, a little bit under it. Yes, able to win races, having very good results, being very fast, but maybe more a number two driver, at least in a top team, than a number one. So a more comfortable situation for Nigel Mansell, and always he out-qualified over the years Riccardo Patrese. But again, who was a very good team player, so not somebody working against the other driver, but really working together. And this is something what helped Nigel Mansell, including helped him winning the title later in 91. At Ferrari, first he outperformed the young Gerhard Berger. Also here we have to say the Ferrari was often unreliable. So first year he won 38 to 21 points, but then he had been outperformed quite clearly by Alain Prost in the 90 season. But then 91, he won the championship. Of course, he outqualified Riccardo Patrese. And then also, sorry, 91, of course, not the championship, which had been in 92, where he won. And also, of course, he outperformed Riccardo Patrese. So what does this tell us? Yes, especially in the beginning, he was outperformed often by the other driver, continuously Elio De Angelis, but also Nelson Piquet. But then with more experience in the middle of his career, he outperformed Nelson Piquet, former world champion, and also Riccardo Patrese, which, despite what I told you, was a very fast driver. So somebody you had to win against. The same with Gerhard Berger. Alain Prost, yeah, he had been outperformed by Prost, but again, Alain Prost, one of the best in Formula One. So no surprise. What does it tell us? Nigel Mansell on the same level as Max Verstappen, Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Ayrton Senna. My personal opinion, and you may have other opinions, of course, no. Very fast driver, somebody who could win once a championship, but not somebody who would win several championships, as the mentioned Verstappen, Schumacher, Hamilton, Senna. Some quotes, interesting, besides being such a favorite of the fans, personality of the year, not that many quotes, which I can show you. Nevertheless, three. I've tried everything other than jumping out of a plane, but nothing gives you adrenaline rush like racing a car. So really, a petrolhead, full racer, not as strategic as, for example, Alan Prost. I think life is full of challenges and problems. I don't believe that anyone is perfect. We all make mistakes, and clearly he did. It's not a bed of roses, and you have to work real hard at it. And this he really did. Hard worker, which of course reasoned with British fans, often coming from working class, and even if not, could rely on this British thing to work hard, but also something which you see in British football teams or other team sports, working always very hard, very fair, and so on. The preparation, commitment, and desire to win will be no less than the last time I drove a Grand Prix car in anger. And this, I mean, as mentioned, we saw he always drove at the limit, sometimes over the limit. That's how Nigel Mansell is, and that's why so many people love Nigel Mansell. Resuming a little bit his personality, Mansell was renowned for his aggressive, never give up approach, typical British. Sorry, a little bit cliche, but that's often a British are, especially British drivers, often pushing his car to the limit, even to the point of exhaustion or collapse. This another thing what we remember in some very few races, nearly he drove to until the collapse, meaning at later his Williams crew had to carry him out of the cockpit as he was unable to do so on his own. He earned nicknames such as Leone, Italian for the lion, for his fighting spirit, and inspired British Mansellmania among British fans, but also fans outside UK, outside Italy, a lot of fans all over the place, especially during his Trimford Silverstone runs. His tenacity was matched by a complex, sometimes difficult personality, determined to overcome financial and physical setbacks. Yes, I remember he had a various accident where he broke something inside his body. Luckily, never something like a life-threatening accident, but nevertheless, a lot of setbacks, including chickenpox, and somebody very stubborn, often ignoring the best advices by friends, family, and doctors, and early returning to the cockpit. He raced despite serious injuries on multiple occasions. Okay, that's today's episode about Nigel Mansell. I hope you enjoyed it, maybe learned something more, maybe something which remembered you back to the times, 80s, 90s, when we saw Nigel Mansell racing, for the case we saw him racing. If you're a younger generation, maybe check out some of the races you can find, for example, on the Formula One app, or you find on YouTube. Always quite interesting, a different time compared to the 2020s. So give it a look. If you like this podcast, give it a like, follow us on YouTube, YouTube Music, or Spotify for the video version. On all other podcast catchers via audio only. If you are into music, look out for the Data Driven Mixtape on Spotify. Here you find a lot of songs inspired by Formula One, some songs even inspired by particular drivers. Hope you like it. With this, have a nice rest of the day and hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.